What's up, everybody, and welcome back to Enjoying the Review. I'm your host, Incomparable Zach Jones, and today I will be reviewing Star Wars Skeleton Crew Episode 4, entitled Can't Say I Remember No At-Atin, a phrase that will be repeated ad nauseum throughout this episode of Star Wars. Before I dig into everything, though, I do want to remind everybody to please subscribe to the YouTube channel, leave thumbs up, positive reviews, comments, all that good stuff. And if you like, you can follow me over on Twitter or Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live. That's ZachJonesLive. All right, guys, so let's get into it. So before I get into spoilers and really break down the episode, I'll say that my score for this episode, I think, is the same as last week's, which is a 6.8 out of 10. I still find this show enjoyable enough, but it's not doing anything that's knocking it out of the park for me. As I've said on previous episodes, all the stuff with the kids I've seen before in other shows, and so that stuff isn't really doing anything for me much. But I do like this mystery that they've set up surrounding their home planet of At-Atin, and we get a little more of that mystery built in this episode, which I like, and I'll go over. And we also, they're giving a little bit more intrigue to Jude Law's character, where we get the sense that, he's been doing some stuff that he's glossing over that we'll find out in a later episode. I almost feel like they're setting stuff up with him where they're going to have that, much like the Lilia episode of Agatha All Along. We'll get an episode where it kind of shows devious things he's been doing along the way or something like that. I will say, when this show started, and I still kind of think this, I figured this show will be about him. He's searching for a treasure to fulfill his own needs, but he's going to fall in love with the kids and sacrifice that treasure or something, for them. And I still kind of feel that's probably what's going to happen. But I think it would be, it would subvert expectations if he really did just turn out to be a huge scumbag and antagonist in the end. It really was just he's in for it for the treasure. I don't think that'll be the case, especially since they already set up his old gang member Brutus and his old crew's coming after him. So, I think in the end he will, be heroic, and he will be, on the side of the kids. But we shall see. All right. With that out of the way, guys, let's dig into it. Let's break this episode down and see what we think. So the episode starts, last episode ended with where, it looked like they had the coordinates to At-Atin and were following them. So they make it back to At-Atin, or do they? They think it is at first. So Fern tells Jod that he cannot be in the cockpit. They have this whole interplay where she's like, you serve us, though you follow my orders. Which, okay. I guess that is fulfilling, childhood fantasy of you being able to turn the tables on the adults. You order them around. So I get it. But we see that Wim is disappointed that he thinks they're back home already, because again, he doesn't want this adventure to be over yet. He's, for the first time in his life, feeling alive, having a sense of joy and adventure, and he's loving it. As they are entering the planet, they get locked into an autopilot landing sequence, which I found a little bit weird, because then SM-33 is able to just break out of it and land on his own, and I'm like, maybe they'll explain it in another episode, but I was kind of like, well, what was the point of all that if he could just easily break it and do what he wants? So they land, but now they're putting it together that it doesn't really look like their home. They don't see any people around, and they hear an explosion in the distance. Fern tells SM-33 to keep Jod on the ship while they go and explore. And they have this whole bit about SM-33, and he's like, oh, I put myself in babysitting mode, and come here, baby, and all this, which I kind of rolled my eyes at. Again, a lot of the humor in this show doesn't really work for me. Maybe if I was a little kid, I would have thought that was hilarious. So the kids find an old house, and they kind of remark how it looks a lot like the houses at Aten on their planet. But this one's kind of dilapidated. It has like a tree growing through the center of it. So they wonder if they're on one of the other planets that Kim mentioned. And spoiler alert, they are indeed. Back to the ship, Jod finds Wim's money, his lunch money that his dad gave him that's actually valuable. And he's confronted by SM-33 and accused of being a thief. This was a little weird, I thought, because Jod's like, hey, it's Jod, let me go or whatever. And so SM-33 lets him go. And, he's like, oh, I'm having trouble with my memory units. But, really, was he ever, it did look like Jod was stealing that money. So, what did that have to do with his memory exactly? That was just perception of reality to me, it looked like. But yeah, he says something about he's having trouble with his memory unit here at Akron, which it seems like a little bit of forced dialogue to get that. It seems a little exposition-y to get out that, oh, that's where we are, type of thing. At least they didn't land at Akron, Ohio. That would have just been terrible. He says that it is a dangerous place that he knows well. Jod asks him about Aten, but he still doesn't remember it. And he gives that whole, line, can't say I remember Aten or whatever, the title of this episode. And he will say it a lot. Jod tells SM-33, let me see if I can jog your memory. But now we cut back to the kids. We see that somebody is watching the kids. The kids find a statue with a missing head, which is kind of interesting, but it's never truly explained who that is. All of a sudden, something takes a shot at that statue and scares the kids off. Although KB sticks around and looks for a second, Fern kind of has to grab her. So the kids end up we find out who's watching them. They're confronted by some other kids wearing helmets, and they identify themselves as the Troik. One of them removes her helmet, this teenage girl, and tells them that if the Hatan patrol gets closer, they will kill them all, no questions asked. So the kids take shelter in a building while a patrol of men, these Hatan soldiers, march by. The men have a tank and some large animals with them. We'll find out that these animals are called Yopis, and there's some sort of, I think, domesticated animal that, help the Troik with farming or something. I don't know. Or maybe they just straight up eat them. I'm not sure. It seemed like it was their version of horses, basically. So the kids are led to a war-torn school where the other Troik live. This girl they met tells her father that they found his EOPs and that they were stolen by a Hatan patrol. So the kids are told to kneel before not General Zod, but General Strix, who is the leader of the Troik and the one true ruler of Akron. Strix says that on his world, they treat their children as adults. He says they acknowledge their strength and they help them help themselves. Again, I think this kind of maybe plays to kids too, that maybe have helicopter parents and they, they want their parents to give them more freedom. This probably isn't, kids like that. They see this and they're like, oh, that does sound appealing. I can identify with that. Strix tells the kids to get on their feet, and he refers to them as soldiers. He says his daughter's name is Hannah, so that's the teenage girl that they met. Fern asks Strix if he knows about Atten, and he says sadly they do not concern themselves with off-worlders beyond trading hides for munitions. Wim asks if they have any ancient maps or star charts, and Hannah interjects and says, well, what about the knowledge hidden in the fallen sanctum? And her dad, this General Strix, you can tell like he was maybe didn't want her to mention that, But Hannah says there are old carvings in the sanctum, coordinates for other planets. Fern asks her if she will take them there, but Strix says that it is too dangerous. He says that it's a distant place and they would not survive the journey. We'll later find out that that is not true. So Strix says that they do have potential, so if they train with his warriors, he will decide if they are ready to brave the fallen sanctum. Fern tells him that they are not afraid. So back to the ship. Jod takes SM-33 outside to try to jog his memory. SM-33 says he remembers warriors that they had to sneak past, but Jod tries to get him to remember the treasure. So it certainly seems like Jod, is after this mysterious, treasure of Atten, So while they're talking, it's very foggy outside, but all of a sudden the fog kind of lifts, and we see that they're surrounded by Hatan soldiers. The soldiers ask them what flag they fly and threaten to shoot them. And Jod just gets on his knees and tells them, just shoot me, So back at the school, Neil does not wish to join the training. Like the other kids, they're practicing shooting these guns and they're doing not very well. Neil, he's not interested in it at all. And Hannah tells him that he is wise. She says the weapons they are using are weak, and she will show him something bigger. So they go to the top of this school where it seems like most of Troik live. Hannah gives Neil a ration of food, but he gives it to some hungry children. And like, even though she's like portrayed as very tough, we can see that she sees the kindness in Neil, and it's hinted at that they maybe have a thing for each other. They maybe like each other. She says that when her father dies, she will lead her clan to victory, which makes me think she doesn't have a whole lot of faith in her father getting the job done. Hannah shows him a large cannon, which they have mounted to the top of the school, which is actually so big, I'm almost wondering, like, could they not? I guess the Hatan are staying, outside the range of that cannon. She says it still works from the old days, and its strength is what keeps them safe here. Neil tells her she shouldn't have to be at war all the time, and kind of, how peaceful it is on Atten. He also, like, tells her, because she's, like, talks about how, like, the Hatan raid them for whatever, then they raid, retaliate and whatever. And Neil has this whole thing about, have you just tried, saying that you're sorry? That's what I would do. Because Neil's such a sweet boy. Back inside, we see that KB is now doing, much better with the target practice. And Wim shows Neil a bigger gun that he found, which, like, kicks so hard that it, like, knocks him back. Strix says that Captain Fern and her crew will honor them by leading them into battle. Fern turns them down, and they look displeased, and they do this whole warrior thing where they tap their like spears on the ground and grunt or whatever. Anyway, so we cut to Fern and her team, leading them into battle. They go outside, and Strix tells them to scout ahead. Now, this scene confused me a little bit because it very much seemed like, Strix was setting up this training exercise where they weren't actually in danger, and he was just like testing them. That's the way it seemed. And we've definitely seen that in other movies and shows and stuff. Neil is scared, so Hannah agrees to go with them. So they hear a noise. This was a little bit weird, I thought. They hear a noise in the distance, which ends up being Jod and SM-33. So my thing is, I thought it was like them setting up a training exercise for the kids, but then I see this and it's like, well, I guess those could have been the Hatan soldiers. So, like, what were they just like setting them out front to possibly die? Like, I don't know. It's weird. Like, it's weird to have a show about child soldiers, but then like tonally, it's a kids show, and it's like, oh no, there was no danger. It's just a weird juxtaposition, I guess. So yeah, Jod and SM-33 show up, and of course we're like, well, we know something happened because the last time we seen them, they were surrounded by the enemy. Jod makes an animal call, and a bunch of Eopes come running in. Strix shakes Jod's hand and offers him a reward. He tells him he wants the kids as his reward. Hannah tells them that they have proven their bravery, and she will take them to the fallen sanctum. Jod tells the kids that so this was interesting. Jod tells the kids that he bargained with the Hatan by giving them Wim's Republic credits. And this is what I referenced earlier. I think between this, and if you remember, it was either episode 1 or I think episode 2, where he met that old crew member who threatened to turn him into Brutus, and the camera just cut away, and we never saw how that was resolved. We're starting to get a couple of these like things where we know there must have been more to the story, and that's why I say I think eventually we're gonna see. I don't know if they'll actually do a flashback and show what Jod actually did in these scenarios, or if they'll just tell us, or he'll tell us what, somewhere down the line. But like, they're definitely setting it up where he's got these like secret moves that he's making. Because it seems very unlikely that he just paid him some credits and they let him go, and they got the Eopes and all that, So the Fallen Sanctum is, I guess, the same as what they call a supervisor tower on Atten, and the truth is, it wasn't far away. It was on their property. They just didn't want to tell them about it yet. Neil tries to get Hannah to go with them, but she refuses. Like, she wants to fight her fight on their planet and make her planet, good or whatever. Hannah does kiss Neil goodbye. We get a sweet little scene with them. So they enter this Fallen Sanctum, and they end up finding coordinates to these other, like, I forget what they're called. Kim called them like the Jewel of the Republic or something, So there's at Akron, the one they're at. There's also at Acom, at Arisia, at Erevan, and at Akota. And then finally, they find Aten. And all the other planets they find, they had coordinates listed on these like pillars. But with Aten, the coordinates are broken off. They're missing. SM-33 says he destroyed the coordinates when he was there before with his old captain. So we're getting more of SM-33's story. KB wonders if they can repair SM-33's memory. So Wim goes off and he finds Fern crying. She says she does not know what she's doing and that he should have been captain. And he tries to comfort her. He says that he would not have gotten them this far. And he's like, "You're awesome. You'll figure it out." And she's like, "You can't just say, I'm awesome and I'll figure it out and expect me to do everything, But then, of course, she has this light bulb moment. So she puts it together that most likely whoever was the last captain ordered SM-33 not to remember Aten. So now that she's the captain, she orders him to remember everything about Aten. So he does. He remembers that his old captain killed any of his crew that saw the coordinates to Aten. He then ordered SM-33 to destroy the coordinates and forget everything about Aten. I'm thinking like, his old captain, like, I don't think it could be Jod. I think that would be too easy. But I do almost have a feeling that, like, it's going to be revealed that whoever the captain is, like, we've already been introduced to them. I don't know, because, that's hard to say, because I honestly don't know how long it's been. Maybe it's been centuries since SM-33 was on this planet. So I could be wrong. Maybe that captain's, like, just dead. But so SM-33 says his old captain told him that if anyone ever comes poking around about the treasure, to pull them apart. But again, and so SM-33 goes crazy and he starts threatening to rip everyone apart limb from limb. But, like, could Fern not just do her captain trick again here and be like, "I'm the captain now, and I order you to not rip us limb from limb"? Would that work? Or do we now have to believe that conveniently this part of his programming is still, not overridable? Anyway, he kind of goes after Neil, but Jod is able to turn off his off switch, and he falls over Neil. And the episode ends with Neil getting so scared that he faints and passes out. So kind of a lackluster ending to this episode, I thought. But yeah, there we have it. Again, just to reiterate, like, I don't know, the interplay between the kids is like, it's fine. It's just, I feel like I've seen it before. But they are still intriguing me. Both with the mystery of Aten and what shenanigans Jude Law's character is getting up to. But still, yeah, overall, I'm going to give it a 6.8 out of 10. I think it's just okay. But guys, comment down below and tell me what you think of this episode and of the series so far. What would you give it on a scale of 1 to 10? And yeah, just like I said earlier on, please subscribe to the Enjoying the Review channel. Thumbs up, positive reviews, comments, all that goodness. And as always, you can find me on Twitter and Blue Sky at Zach Jones Live, ZachJonesLive. But guys, until next time, I hope you're enjoying the review. Bye, guys.